Jeremiah said, "From the prophet and priests, corruption has gone forth." There are many passages in the book of Judges and the book of 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles that talk about a wicked king, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord. And then it goes on to talk about, oftentimes, the corruption of the people that occurred under that leadership. There are well-meaning, good people, as I've said, in this country that are in the ministry from various denominations who either dismiss or poo-poo politics. That spirit of separatism, that spirit of escapism, is part of why America is dying. Now, you know me. I wade into waters that other people say, no, just don't go there. I'm going to wade somewhere right now. And I want you to not be offended, but I want you just to listen. Is Jesus going to come again? Yes, he is. He will return in glory to judge the living and the dead. Well, do you believe in pre-mill, post-mill, in the middle of the tribulation, after tribulation? I'm not here to discuss any of that. I'm here to discuss something else that's a little bit critical. Namely, Jesus said, "Occupy till I come." Occupy till I come. He did not say, be preoccupied with my coming. Do you hear me? Do you see the difference? Occupy, in some contexts, that's a military term, like occupation. Jesus said, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." Jesus said, "Lo, I am with you always. Go into all the world, teaching the nations to obey all things that I have commanded you." That's pretty comprehensive gospel. And there are many well-meaning Christians, Christian leaders, various denominations, who say, well, the gospel is it's a fire escape. We want to lead people to Christ so that they can escape eternity in hell. But our mission is not to have a Christian community that's active politically, because Jesus doesn't care about politics. Really? Are you going to tell me that Jesus does not care about politics? Think it through. He's the King of Kings. That's a political title. He's the King of Kings. In Psalm 2, which is a Christological psalm, it says, "Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way." It's a Christological psalm that warns people that warns kings and princes that they've got to serve God. Why do the heathens rage and the nations imagine a vain thing? The people of the earth come together. Their kings come together. They say, let's break his bands from us, throw his cords from us. That's talking about going into rebellion against God. The kings of the earth take counsel together against the Lord and against his Christ. And God punishes them. He focuses on political leaders, civil leaders, and punishes them because they're leading people into rebellion against God. Now, for those of you who say, well, it's just, God cares about abortion, but not about politics. Well, stop, think with me. That's like saying God cares about slavery, but not politics. Well, we need revival. That's what we need, revival. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but let's come back to the second coming. There are a lot of people in the church today that are so preoccupied with the second coming that they're of no earthly good. And they think that they're just supposed to try and focus on dates and times and seasons. Even though the Lord said no one knew the day or the hour, even though every date that's been picked in my lifetime, in your lifetime, and in 150 years prior to that, every date has been wrong. But the more that people who love Jesus, truly love him, are preoccupied with that stuff, the more they're willing to ignore the political and civic realm. I mean, think of J. Vernon McGee, the late J. Vernon McGee. What was one of his famous lines? I got to get my J. Vernon McGee voice on. Why polish brass on a sinking ship? Remember that? That's what he taught. That's what he said about politics. that's a sinking ship. Why polish brass? Let's lead people to Christ. Let's get them out of hell. Well, you know what? If for the last 50 years in America, devout Christians had been preaching the gospel, leading people to the Lord, bringing them into the church, if they had been doing that and done their civic duty, we would not be living in a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. We would have already broken the back of legalized child killing. We would have stopped the homosexual, same-gender marriage juggernaut. We would have stopped it. But instead, we're preoccupied with potluck suppers and spiritual bless me clubs. I can just think of the Christians in Germany singing louder while the trains went by filled with Jews screaming for help. I'll be right back. My wife and I, for 5 years, have been grinding our own wheat and baking our own bread from scratch. Within 2 hours, you can have fresh wheat in your hand and then piping hot bread come out of the oven. The most nutritious and delicious bread you will ever have. And we do it for under $1 a loaf. Call Paula's Bread and find out about this grain mill and the mixer and how it can save you money and change your life.